Welcome everyone to another episode of Dice and Brushes, Warhammer Imperium unbagging, boxing, whatever you want to call it. Today is going to be a little bit shorter because this first issue is very nice and quick. So, without further ado, let's get straight into things. First, we got a 60mm base for Roboute Gilman. And then we have the final section of his sprue. Ooh, let's try to get that up here, so you can all see it and kind of get a idea of the scale. Yeah, what the heck, why not? I'll turn it over a little bit here too. And that will go into the bag for Brett, because he will now have two of these. So with the rest of Roboute Gilman, we already received some lore about him. We already received the how to build instructions. So the majority of this is just how to paint Roboute Gilman with everything that has been provided so far. It's got him, his scenic base you'll see in a little bit here. Of course, how to paint flames like his sword. This how to paint the Emperor's sword is actually very good how to paint flames. Highly recommend paying attention to that one. And actually the face isn't too bad on Roboute compared to most models, but I would still go with the helmeted version. Oop, there we go. There's the base. There's what we're really looking for. Alright, just to get that over and done with. Of course, the blazers on his armor that are on nice fire. Well, I'm sorry, not his armor, on his base. And of course, we have the 9th edition rules for Roboute Gilman. These are all outdated now. So, for example, you no longer have to pay 3 command points in order to take him in your force. So don't worry about that. Of course, it has a tutorial about how his 9th edition rules would work, specifically in combination with Outriders against some Skopek destroyers. Then we have a mission called the Dolmen Gate Duel of Champions. This is a little weird one. It's a bit modified, where basically a Primaris Captain and a Necron Overlord are dueling each other at a Dolmen Gate, each with 25 wounds. And in order to help the Space Marines, the Space Marine Primaris Captain gets the Sword of St. Marcus, which is basically a damage 3 mastercrafted power sword. So they do, and those rules are in addition to the regular 100 power. So it's a little bit larger of a battle, but your characters, those two characters I should say, start in the center of the battlefield and just duking it out. Whoever wins gains, I think it was 15 victory points? Yes, 15 victory points. And there are some limitations, like no stratagems or faction abilities other than living metal. So I'd say that this is pretty heavily weighed towards the Space Marine, just because they do get, oops, put it in view here, they do get a special weapon for it. But other than that, like I said, nice quick. And the next two, actually all of the other magazines that come in this pack have the same model, the Paragon Warsuit, so they'll be relatively quick as well. Okay, and now we get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of the Paragon Warsuits. Here we have a 50mm base for the Paragon Warsuit, the first one anyway. And then this entire sprue contains the first Paragon Warsuit. So the next 3 issues will have the same exact sprue on them. So this will be a pretty quick episode. And that will go into the bag for Brett to take from me. And just a little bit, of course, like always, we have the war gear of the Paragon warsuits and just brief explanations of like their grenade launchers, war blades versus their maces, their storm bolters, and a few of their options on their left shooty arms. Then, of course, like always, we have a battle record for a campaign if you wish to do that. And then for stories, we have a actually, this one's a little bit longer than some of the stories. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'd say it's about mid-length. But it starts off as the Inquisition versus a Slaneshi cult, which goes into the Emperor's children coming about, and eventually the Grey Knights get a little bit involved, but not by a whole lot. Most of the text here has to do with, it's from an, an inquisitional, I don't want to say soldier, but part of the Inquisition's point of view of the fight. And of course, we have a how to build your Paragon warsuits. This will be the only one in the entire this and the next 3 issues that will have this. And of course, then we have the how to paint. Of course, with all the paints that have been included so far. And quite a few pages because you've received quite a few paints at this point. Of course, the final gallery. Then we got Paragon Warsuits data sheet. This is again from last edition. If you're playing 9th edition, you can use this right out. If you want to play 10th edition, currently the index is free off the Warhammer community website. Just go down to their downloads tab, go to Warhammer 40k, and scroll down until you see the Adeptus Sororitas index. Then under tutorial, because there's no real special rules with this, they basically just reinforce what weapon is which, and along with because some of them are options, and just help you identify things a little bit more. Then we have the asteroid belt. Now this is building into something I should let you know right off the bat. This is building into a campaign, which, whoop, sneak peek. So Epsilon Stagna 718 is a pretty basic mission, but in this one you want to basically protect your troops well, not just your troops, your forces as much as possible. So you get additional points for taking less casualties in the first battle round and for taking, I shouldn't say casualties, less friendly units being destroyed in the first battle round and throughout the game. Then we have a little campaign marker, which you can either just cut out right here or you can make a copy. This section right here is just how to use it, because that is just a marker for part of what is in here. But in essence, this mission, Epsilon Stagnus, is part of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 possible missions. And you are using your wins and losses to track who is dominant in that campaign. Is it the Imperials? Is it the Necrons? And it just gives you a little tutorial of how to use it versus with a Necron win, another Necron win, and then a Necron loss. So in order to actually win, you basically need to be able to go off the scale. So 3 victories. If you got 3 victories in a row, you'd win. If you got like 2 victories, a loss, then you'd need another 2 victories in order to win, so on and so forth. But again, the next few issues have just more Paragon warsuits and battles for the campaign, which, let's put this over there. Let's go into the miniature campaign pack. We got some lore on the campaign itself. Necron's Imperium, brief descriptions. We have some basic campaign mission rules. Again, this is out of the 9th edition. So if you want to update it for 10th, you could modify, or I should say modify. Modify it for 10th. Just go on, get the free core rules off the Warhammer community website. Right? Same with here. And balance of power. This is the actual balance of power sheet that you will use with that marker from earlier. Whether whoever is ascendant versus dominant gets different effects. For example, let's go off the Necrons because I like the Necrons better. Once per game in the morale phase, select an Imperium unit that would be required to take a morale test. Now it would be a battle shock test. This unit automatically passes its morale test. Oh, sorry, that's if the Imperium is Imperium effect for the Necron Ascendant. Necron effect for Necron Ascendant. Once per game at the start of the fight phase, the Necron's player may select one Necron unit that is not a character. Until the end of that phase, add one to that unit's attack characteristic. And that's just a quick, brief sample. Of course, we have a nice campaign map that I should have mentioned earlier. Then flipping this around, whoop. In addition to the effect that I just described for the Necrons being not dominant, but ascendant, each time you win or lose a battle, I should say win, for example, Asteroid Belt, the one that we just looked at, if the Necrons win, the Necron player may re-roll up to 3 advance rolls during the battle. But you have to win it. So that is for each battle. So basically, if I won as a Necron player, Asteroid Belt and let's say Void Battle. Void Battle after the deploy army step, select one unit from your army wholly within your deployment zone. It can make a normal move up to 6 inches. If your opponent has a similar ability, roll off. Winner chooses who has to use their ability first. Now, you can only benefit from one boon per mission, but it gives you a each victory will give you more boons to choose from. There are also both Necron and Imperial relics listed, including the Sword of St. Marcus mentioned before. So this will be the kind of your mini booklet for your campaign. So, and with just a little bit of editing, we'll be right back with the next. And now we are going to go to issue 82. And we are going to start off with Obelus and Lyric Phase 3. This is Chaos Demons, specifically led by Be'lakor, versus some Imperial Knights from House Raven. And it's more than anything, it's just to give Be'lakor a lot more lore for new people especially. Then we have some basic lore about the Eldari craft worlds, the main Eldar. As I sometimes like to say, inquisitorial report that basically says, hey, Chaos is a mutual enemy of humans and Eldar, but the alliances are usually temporary at best. And then we have a little bit, not sure how well you can see all of these, some brief one-paragraph descriptions for the various major craft worlds in game. We have Ulthwé, we have Aliatuk, we have Bealtan, we have Eandon, and we have Samhan. It mentions that there are other craft worlds, but they're just not as well recorded. War of Faith. This one I find quite a poetic one. for the stories. This is Sisters of Battle versus the Word Bearer Chaos Space Marines. I find it poetic simply because Lorgar, the Primarch of the Word Bearers, is the one that created the Imperial, what is now the Imperial faith, the worship of the Emperor. And he has to, in lore, constantly try to fight against his own words and have people quote his book against him. So, I'm not a fan of either of these, but it does feature the Paragon warsuits quite heavily. I will let you know about that. But those two factions just don't interest me personally a whole lot, so I'm going to skip over that. I was wrong. There is how to build and paint your warsuit. It seems like they did want to focus this time on different weapon options, at least within the building section here, rather than a complete just absence or what's the word? Completely just getting rid of it. So of course we got quite a few pages there. Then we have another of the campaign battles, Battle of Tragus. The Necrons are trying to recover some wreckage, and the Imperium is trying to search for a Xenotech. So if you want to play fluffy, I would bring the AdMech for this battle. And there is a special action for salvaging, basically salvage an objective, and it cannot be scored in the first battle round. And you basically want to complete an action to pick up each of the little objective points. Right, and then we have this last part. So we'll go on to issue number 83 with the last Paragon Warsuit. Alright, now we have the final issue for the day. And yes, this white paper is here for a reason. This came inside of the magazine. It is a correction that they made, that they decided to make, which I'll get to later. But first off, we have story for Warzone Phase 4 of Obelisk and Lyrak. This time it is an assault on Metallica by the Death Guard and some Khorne demons is where the focus is this time. There is a few mentions of Titans as well. It also has the phases and all the different moving parts of the assault. Let's try to move this a little bit up. Like the threefold push, firestorm, dark gods descend, demons from the deep, sallying forth, a failed push, shadow of the terminus est, and some more, like indomitable defense. But now for the fun part. Some basics about Eldari mythology. Their gods, their fall, a little bit about their pantheon over here, but there is a heavy focus on Cain, the bloody-handed god. It does have quite a bit about the death of Eldenesh, and it does have a brief recording about the fall, and that it was actually Cain who originally believed that the Eldar would cause his demise. Not a vision, but his belief. Then we have stories of some Imperials, specifically Space Marines, were trampling on a maiden world of Samhan, and the Samhan decided to react. There is at least one photo of Samhan versus an Ultramarine here. But on the same page, it also mentions fire dragons going through a breach in a wall. So I don't know if and it doesn't mention a whole lot other than, like over here, it also mentions the fire dragons. But other than that, There's very little about which they're fighting, so this might be recycled artwork, because the fire dragons are I believe a salamanders subchapter, or successor chapter, I should say. I don't think they're painted or have the symbol of the Ultramarines. Just a little bit. Anyway, next we have how to build the Paragon Warsuit Superior. It does mention here that the Superior does have her own special sword. I can't really show it too. I'll have to put the page upside down. There we go. So there's some words inscribed on a sword that are not inscribed on the others. So if you're building your Warsuit Superior with a sword, please take note of that. Of course, it has the how to build section, including the special sword. I don't know if, off the top of my head, if the Superior has to have that sword, or if it's just an option. And also mentions that the sword actually came in issue 82 versus this is 83. And of course, we have how to paint our new Paragon Superior, but I'm just going to skip ahead a few pages here into scouring Electia? Electia? But in essence, this is a Necron versus Imperium King of the Hill type match, where you are fighting for control of a shrine that has been partially destroyed, and you have to, as the Imperium player, have at least a Canoness and at least one other Adepta Sororitas, it should be Adeptus Sororitas, unit. Other than that, within the 75 power, everything else is your choice. And there is this piece of paper that I mentioned earlier. This is a correction to what was printed in the mission rules here. Basically, in the mission rules, it says that there is a cutout for this shrine area. But in this correction, they mentioned that it is meant to be just a terrain piece. There is no cutout. So, although I am disappointed that they did have that kind of error, I am glad that they fixed it, at least with a little sheet of paper. Especially, it could have been confusing for new players to not see the mentioned cutout over here that they would have been expecting. But that is it for number 83. In two of the next issues, I don't know if there's going to be 3 or 4. 84 will have a Skitarii Marshal, and 85 will have the Hexmark Destroyer. So we'll be looking out for those next time on Dice and Brushes. And as we always say, get your shit painted.